The 2018 Commonwealth Innovation Forum, brought to you by Destination Gold Coast.
Ewen Macpherson is the Managing Director of Symphony Hill Wines, a proud Queensland wine company, and is one of the exhibitors here at the Commonwealth Innovation Forum. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Tell us the Symphony Hill wine story.
Oh, it's basically ex-computer programmer with kids, and I wanted them to be raised on acreage, and I grew up on acreage myself, and I also want to go back to uni and learn something completely different. So I thought, viticulture, I love wines, I'll have a crack at making some wine, and my kids can grow up on the vineyard, and that's where it all started.
So you were a computer programmer prior to this. That's a big transition for you.
Yes, but one helped finance the other. The computer programming is an industry where you can make money, and setting up a winery is where you spend money, so yeah.
Was it a difficult start for you? Because, I mean, wine industries alone is very competitive.
It is, but what we did take a while to establish the brand in that I prepared the soil for 2 years. I went to uni, did a degree in viticulture, and worked with people who actually had experience, and I had no experience except for what I was drinking, and then now learning at uni. And so people like our winemaker Mike Hayes was the vineyard manager back in the day, helping me plant the vines and setting it all up. And then we built the winery in 2003, and after a couple of vintages, I encouraged Mike to start having a go at being our senior winemaker. He had done about 20 or 30 vintages around the country and New Zealand, and what he doesn't know about wine wasn't worth listening to. And off we went, and last year he became Australian Winemaker of the Year. So that was so exciting.
Yeah, that's wonderful news. Queensland is not renowned for being a big wine industry when you compare it to the likes of South Australia, Victoria, New South Wales, and I guess Western Australia for that matter. But the wines we have here, what makes them different?
Well, basically, we've got a little piece of Australia that is 1,000 metres above sea level, giving you a beautifully cool climate, a lot cooler than most other wine regions in Australia, which is the number one surprise for people who think we must have pineapples at the end of our rows being in Queensland. But we're in the Stanthorpe region, and it gets down to minus 12 in winter, and in summer we've only got to 40 degrees once in the history of the area, compared to, say, the southern Australian wine regions, which are getting hotter and hotter progressively. Still making great wines, but they're more those big Dolly Parton higher alcohol wines. Ours are more that elegant French cool climate red wines that we're coming through with there, which are doing very well. So the region's always had the climate to make fabulous wines, but it's a bit of an unknown secret, and we've gone in there with everyone's expectations very low, but our expectations of quality are very high, and it's been worked really well because we're able to make some great wines there and surprise people who come out from Brisbane and the Gold Coast and Toowoomba, Sunshine Coast, to say, wow, we've got this wine region in our back pocket out there.
Because the region we're talking about is the Granite Belt or around Stanthorpe, which has had wineries fairly well established for some years, and it's a great apple territory as well. So you're absolutely right when you say that the climate or the region alone is perfect for the picking and the producing of wine. What else makes Queensland wine different, or your wine different from the others?
It's variety. What we're concentrating on in the Granite Belt is emerging grape varieties or alternative grape varieties, and not just Symphony Hill, but others there as well, doing a great job. Producing wines of all sorts of weird and wonderful names, like Vermentino and Petit Monsang and Sangiovese, and all sorts of exciting grape varieties. There's a great big world of wine out there, and being small, we're able to say, right, let's make 4 ton of something. And rather than the large wineries who have to change their focus, needs a whole big marketing push and investment and strategy, whereas we can essentially make it up as we go along and have fun and explore the world of wine out there. And a lot of wines are sold direct to customers on the cellar door. Winter's the big time when people come out there and explore the region with log fires, and actually they're looking like snow this winter, which will be great. So the last time we had snow a few years ago, we got about a foot of snow, and it was fantastic. So if that can happen again, yeah, it'll be so much fun.
So much for climate change. In terms of your wine, how much of it is exported across the country and possibly overseas?
We do export to China. My daughter's from China. We adopted her in 2004, and we have a wine named after her. And we named it Dan Ying, which is the name the orphanage gave her, and it's got her name in Chinese on the front. But it was never designed to be exported, but a Chinese businessman saw it in the cellar door and said, "Oh, I'd love to sell this in China," and off we went. But we're not talking huge volumes, but it's I love going to China. I love taking my daughter back, so this is a great way for that to happen. And that particular wine, we donate revenues, about a third of all sales, to a charity, an orphanage in China with girls with special needs who won't be adopted. So it's something close to our heart. But as far as volume of exports go, it's not huge. I'm looking to build on that, but exports are something you should look at as the last thing you do, because it's better off to expand your domestic market more than looking overseas. And we're only a small winery anyway, so exports aren't something that we have to have, and we do sell mostly domestically. We have a huge wine club where like a tasting six-pack gets sent out to members, and that goes really well. So a lot of wines actually just go straight to our wine club members, but we do have a big range, so we also, obviously at the cellar door, we open up all sorts of fun things too. Wine
clubs are so popular because you get to sample different types of wines that you may not necessarily be attracted to if you went to a bottle or somewhere. Tell us how did Symphony Hill get its name?
That was my wife's, I'm going to say fault, but that's the wrong word. She went for a bushwalk on our block when we first bought it. It was just a vacant block, and went up top of the hill, and she had what she describes as a Julie Andrews moment, and the hills are alive, and just loved the whole symphony of nature going off, and hence the name Symphony Hill was born.
It's a lovely story. You say that you're a boutique winery or a small winery based in Queensland on around Stanthorpe. What does the future hold for Symphony Hill?
Well, we've just had an amazing year last year, 2017, Australian Winemaker of the Year in Queensland. When we started this project, we were just aiming for the stars, but I don't think that was ever in our minds. And it's so exciting for Mike and our team to be recognised for the hard work and for the excellence they're producing. But we actually won 10 trophies and 14 gold medals last year, including in Canberra at the National Wine Show of Australia, for our very scary German white wine called Gewürztraminer, which is actually made in a dry style, wonderful with spicy food. But yeah, it won a great trophy. We were down there in Canberra, and again, another thing I didn't think would happen when I first started is I got this tap on the shoulder and turned around and James Halliday saying, "Congratulations, Ewen, well done." And I'm going, "Wow, look at that." Other sceptical people have said, "Oh, well, he knew your name because you had a name tag on," but still, it was great.
Well, that's wonderful. That's a great success story, not only for Symphony Hill but for Queensland and the Queensland wine industry. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Based on your wines that you sell, let's go through a menu. And you can then match the wines for those listening who think that you think would be appropriate. So let's start with a good steak. If someone loves a good steak, what would go well with that?
Okay, there's two answers. There's one that you would expect, which is our reserve Shiraz, which over the years has been served to Prince William and Kate and Barack Obama and his mates at the G20 and so forth, and golds at Royal Sydney and nominated for trophy. And that's a lovely, big, juicy, opulent Shiraz, great with steak. But I'm actually going to put out there one that's a light-bodied wine with a big steak with high fat content, so Wagyu or something, would be our Nebbiolo. 2014 was a high-scoring Nebbiolo at the Royal Melbourne Wine Show, and it's light. It's like an Italian Pinot Noir almost, but because it's got higher acid and higher tannins than typical French varieties, that cuts through that fat content, and it just comes together like black magic, or I should say white magic. Well, that's too much fun, it can't be good. I don't know, but anyway, there's two options there to try, actually.
Right. So two for the meat, or the red meat. Let's try white meat. What would you recommend for chicken?
Oh, gee, our wild fermented Viognier, our wild child Viognier, which has my daughter's handprint on the front, she's also a wild child. That's lovely and luscious. It's like drinking a cuddle. It's big and it's got some lovely oak integration, and that would go really well with chicken done in, say, a stir fry with capers and garlic and a little bit of naughty butter and a little bit of the Viognier actually put through too to make all those nice crunchy bits on the bottom, and you drink a third of the glass as you're cooking it, and then you have the last third when you're eating the meal.
As you do to have a good night. All right, you choose the next. I've given, we've looked at red meat, white meat, very, very basic, of course, but what would you recommend for a wine, a lover of good wine who may not have sampled one of yours?
Okay, I'm going to pick our shining star, continually wins trophies and golds, and it's that German word, that's the Gewürztraminer. So Gewürztraminer, or Aussies can say Gewürztraminer, or girls with stamina, whatever helps you pronounce that variety. But this is a wine with jazz hands. It just leaps out of the glass, big German accent, hello, and it's just amazing wafts of Turkish delight and light cheese, and it's got spice on the finish, and you smell it, so many sweet flavours. You think it's going to be sweet, it's actually very dry. All the sugar's been converted to alcohol, and it's a beautiful, dry, spicy finish. And with that wine, you can have that with two options. If you love blue cheese like I do, it is a heavenly match. And the other thing is anything spicy, not just Asian, definitely Asian, but also spicy Italian, anything with spice. And the Gewürztraminer, normally up till the Gewürztraminer came into my life, beer was what I would have with spicy food, and that's also a great match. But this spicy Gewürztraminer is just fantastic with spicy food.
Well, it's good to have you here at TCIF, and it's an innovation or a sort of a life science innovation forum to be associated with that. What's it mean to you?
Oh, everything. So we have always innovating. We actually planted 40 grape varieties when we first started because we wanted to explore this new wine region that hadn't really been explored to this level before, and plant all sorts of varieties, look at them viticulturally, how they perform. And the beauty of the Granite Belt, we've got so many different altitudes there. We're at 1,000 metres. We're the highest vineyard there, including anywhere in Australia, actually. We're so high, but you need to be if you're in Queensland. But there's also areas in the Granite Belt which are 350 metres lower down. That's still the Granite Belt, and that's a totally different climate. So you can grow some more hot climate varieties there, like Petit Verdot, which needs extra warmth to ripen fully. We just can't ripen Petit Verdot at our high altitude, and things like that. So there's so many great varieties. So innovation's about matching the altitude of your vineyard on the Granite Belt with the varieties that best match it. Plus our winemaker is a mad scientist and tries all sorts of different yeasts all the time on different varieties to see how they perform. You can have one batch of fruit fermenting in 4 different tubs with 4 different yeasts and looking at the results. We're forever looking at wild yeast ferment all the time, different enzymes, all sorts of cold soaking and hot soaking ferment methods, and all sorts of new alternative ways of producing new alternative varieties. So innovation is the key. You've got to keep going and exploring the big world of wine out there, because people get bored of just Shiraz, Cabernet, Riesling and Chardonnay.
You mean there's more?
There is more. And I love those 4 varieties just mentioned. But yeah, I love all great wines, and there's such a big world of wine out there.
It's been great chatting with you. Congratulations on the growth and the continued growth of Symphony Hill Wineries on the wonderful Granite Belt around Stanthorpe, and thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Anthony. Thank you.